What is up, everybody? Welcome to another Arcade 1-Up modification video here on the YouTube channel. Thank you for joining me once again. I am super excited here today to present this to you guys. It is the Centipede Trackball modification onto your Raspberry Pi here. I'm going to show you what this thing contains, how everything functions on here, and I'm just super excited about this one. I mean, we've done a whole bunch of mods so far: the Pac-Man, the Space Invaders, you know, the Rampage, Street Fighter. But I gotta say, this is probably one of my favorites right now. Just because it has this trackball, you know, and this is the only way to play these games on here. You know, you're not going to get the same type of feel, let's say if you're on your Xbox controller or you're using a joystick on here. And especially one of these balls, it's the Glen Retro Show trackball on here. I'm going to show you guys what is included on here. Now, it's pretty much the same as all the other mods, just a couple different features that you will need, items that you will need in this build as opposed to the others. But I'm really digging this build on here. Right now it's probably the best one on here. Well, as of right now, you know, because once this bad boy here is done, this is going to be great. This one, I mean, buttons, the spinners, it's, you know, and then once I'm done with both of these, yes, I will be releasing a 12-in-1 image as well. As of right now, I started with the trackball, started here with the Centipede 1. Let me show you guys how this thing is powered on here. I got removed the board back here to show you guys. So basically, you know, we removed the PCB board here, 2 screws, got that out, unhooked all the wires, and then everything's hooked up to this board right here. You know, you got your ground wire, your cables here, and then all the way on the far right here, if you're choosing to use the stock speaker, this is where it goes. Now there's 4 pins here on the right, which you're gonna need to do. I use the top 2 on here. You know, you could use the bottom 2, top 2, but I use the top 2 here. You know, you only need 2 because the Arcade 1-Up is a mono speaker. Now there is some plastic parts here that simply snap off, so you could fit this on here. You know, just snap those off, and then that's where your speaker goes. Everything else is the same. You know, your HDMI. You're using your Arcade 1-Up power cable here, and then right here, here's your switch. Also, you could change the volume on here, how high or low you want it. So this has a volume switch on it as well. Now, besides the trackball, like I said, it's an upgrade. It's a Glen Retro Show GRS Trackball on there that I'm using. And also, you will need this interface board in this image. Basically, you plug your trackball, either one, on here. There's 2 ports here because we're gonna do the 12-in-1. We're gonna have a trackball and a spinner, but either one on here. And on the bottom, you're not using this one here. This one is when you use the stock to get it connected to the stock control pad. So we're not going to use that. We have to use this mini USB. Now, unfortunately, the board does not come with this wire. So you're going to need a mini USB wire. If you don't have one of those, I'll put a link in the description where you can purchase that. I think they're like $3-4 maybe. And you get like a set of 3 of them. So I'll put that in and you're gonna need this board. The board's only like $10, so that, you know, that's very affordable right here. That's how it looks. And then I got my keyboard hooked up on here to this. I'm gonna take that out because we're gonna power this. I'm gonna show you guys what we have going on in here. So basically that's how it's set. Oh, before I go, I know a lot of guys run into this issue. On the Raspberry Pi is where you have your on and off switch and your volume switch. The top 2, as you can see, the black on the left, red on the right, is your pin 5 and 6. And then here's your volume switch, 12, 14, 16, with the red on top. That's the your off, medium, high volume right there. Make sure this is plugged in. If it's not plugged in, it's going to power down. If it's on the wrong pin, it might power down. If it's flipped, it might also power down. Or if you don't shut down properly, you might run into an issue on there. I might create an image without the on-off, but I know on here mainly everybody that's using it is using it with the Arcade 1-Up. Because if you weren't using it with the Switch and you don't have that plugged in there, this thing might just shut down on you. So, I'll see if you're one of those. Let me know in the comments. If I have a lot of people that do want me to exclude the on-off switch, I could make a separate image for that. But you have everything hooked up on there. Everything should work. Pretty much once you download the image, put it into the Raspberry Pi, and you're good to go. So let's power this thing on here. Here's the on-off switch. Here's your volume. I got the keyboard here. Let me just put it to the side. So I'm going to show you guys some stuff as far as the, so text, everything's removed. There's your splash screen. We got a new team interface. I had to use a track mode on this one as opposed to the other builds, just so we could have the trackball navigate the menus. Because on the emulation stage, unfortunately, couldn't get that going on there. On the games, no problem, but you would have to put either joystick in there. But we're not doing any of that. Like I said, none of my builds include for you to add in additional buttons or joysticks, and I'm not going to start now. So, let's take a look here. So, basically, this is the new build. Here's your theme. You got the Arcade 1-Up logo here. Now, generally, Arcade 1-Up would have like a Capcom, Atari. I don't want to do that because we're not keeping it with the licenser. We're putting a whole bunch of different games on here, so it wouldn't be right to have like a Capcom and then have all these different games. So we just put a RetroPie image there. I think it looks nice on here. You got your trackball here working to navigate the menus. Now, as far as the buttons, these don't do anything. This one will select the games. This is the A button, and then and one thing on here, we have our, I added this on. I could remove this if you guys don't want this, but I put all games and favorites. All right now is highlighted, which will display all the games basically on here. All right. If I switch that, right now I put the switch on here on the player 1 and 2. This will change it to, as you can see, favorites. Right now on the favorites, I put what's on the 12-in-1 trackball games on here. You could always change this or remove or add to your favorites on here. It's pretty much easy access, so you don't have to go through all the games to have your list. So that's what these two buttons do. You could remove that to the controls. If let's say you don't want that function on here, you only want it on the keyboard, so none of these will do anything. But so far, those are the only two that will do anything on the menus. It'll be to switch between the favorites and all, or let's say you only want one of these to do, the other one to do something else or nothing. Let me show you how that's done. Basically, plug in your keyboard into one of the open USBs. On the USBs, I have next to the Ethernet wire on the top is the for the USB encoder, which you only need the buttons. 1, 2, 3, and then the player 1, player 2. There's no joystick obviously on there. The trackball is on a separate USB. Below that USB, let me just show you guys. So you have your Raspberry Pi here. Here's the Ethernet. So on the top here, right next to it is the encoder, USB encoder, and below that is the for the interface board USB. And then I got my keyboard plugged in on here. So as you could see, where's the? It's all the way back there. My encoder here only has the 5 buttons. There's nothing else on there. So Let's go back here. Okay. Alright, so we got our keyboard plugged in here. First, let me go over the controls on here, how you could adjust them, change them to, let's say you want to change out some of the buttons or add some functions. Like I said, I don't have much on here because I like to keep it user-friendly, but maybe you might be one of those that want the functions here, so you don't have to always take out the keyboard. You could do that as well. Basically, on here with the menus, like I said, trackball will control the menu, A button will select the game, and this is your filter between all games and favorites. But let's say you want to remove that, so you're not able to do that only through the keyboard, and just to keep it on the favorites, and nobody could switch that. If you want to minimize the selection, let's say your guests come over or whatever, and you don't want them to go through the whole list, and it will just stay on favorites, you could do that as well. I'm going to show you how to do all that. Basically, once you have the keyboard plugged in, hit the tab button. This will bring up the menu. Okay. First thing, we'll go to controls here. Now, let's say, like I said, I hit the tab button to get to the menus here. Let's say you want the menus on here. You would scroll to right here, configure. For the configure, right now it's tab on here, or you press escape and up. Now, you could change that. Just make sure you don't remove the keyboard functions, because then you might run into some issues. But you could add an input. Let's say I wanted to add, like make this button as the, to access this configuration. You could do that, you know, on there. Or if you wanted to remove one of these, you could also remove it on here. That's how you take out or add the input, you know. So you could make one of these buttons to get you into the menus if you don't care about user-friendly. Let's say, you know, you don't mind going on there, so you don't have to bring out the keyboard every time. You could do that. All the way on top here, here's you know, like your up and down navigation. You know, we have the keyboard to do that. You could add in if you, let's say you have a joystick on here, you could add that. Our mouse is right here. That's for the trackball, you know, for the up. So you could always add and remove here. For that, for the navigation, that's where you would do that. Select is pretty much like picking the game, or going through here, selecting, which is the A button or the enter on your keyboard. Like I said, you could change that if you want to. Here's the next filter. Next filter, and that's for these two. Let's say you want to remove that. You don't want even people to switch between favorites and all games. That's right here, joy button 3 and 4. And you can remove both of those, or let's say you just want to have it just one of them to do that function and the other one to do something else. You could remove one of them here. Okay, so that's that. That's pretty much it. And then all your favorites. You know, I think it's I set it up on the F on the keyboard. Will toggle between your favorites. Yeah, is the and also editing the game on here is the space bar on here. If you want to add a button or something else, you could change that. We'll go into that a little bit later. I'm going to show you how to edit game, add a category, and whatnot. That's over there. All the way in the bottom here, mouse threshold. You could set this between 1 and 100. 100 is like the least sensitive on there. So let's say when you're navigating, if you want to change it a bit, I set mine to 25. I think on the default you guys have it on 10. If it's too fast, so you want to slow it down a bit, then higher the amount here. You will need to reboot for it to actually, you know, change, to make the changes. Because when you set that, nothing's gonna happen. Make sure you reboot, and then you'll notice the difference on there, you know. So that's where you change that. And yeah, so that's basically here. Here's all your controls, you know. Oh, here it is. Add a remove favorite. So I have the letter F. So basically on the keyboard, I just hit F on any game if I want to add it to that favorites list. Or if you hit it, if it's already on the favorites, it will ask you to remove it. If you want to make one of these buttons as your favorites, you could do that as well. You know, so you could put, let's say, this button as your favorites and this as your filter. You know, so you'll have all the controls on here. You won't even have to bring out the keyboard. Like I said, that's up to you. I mainly like to keep my builds as user-friendly, so nobody will be able to make those changes. Only you will with the keyboard. So, but if you wanna, you would add the input here, basically. Click that, it'll ask you which button, and then you click which button you want. You know, it'll be on here. But yeah, that's basically for the controls on here. Let's back out. And so if I'm on here, you know, right now I have my favorite selected, which is the 12-in-1. So you're only gonna see the 6 trackball games on here. Let me switch it to all games. So here's basically everything that's on here. Let's say I wanted to put Golden Tee as my favorite. I would click the F, and I'll bring you here. Add Golden Tee 97 to your favorites, and then you pick yes or no. If you want it, if you put it yes, then it's going to show up in your favorites, you know. And like I said, if there's a game on here that I have, like Centipede's already on there, if I click F on it now, it'll ask you if you want to remove it. So that's how you work the favorites on there. Let me go in there now. Hit the tab. Go to displays. All right, and on the bottom, close to very bottom here, it'll say favorites. Select that. Here's our filters for those. We have the all games and favorites. Now you could remove all games if, let's say, you don't want that on here and you just want to list your favorites, or you don't want to have the favorites list, just keep the all games. And then there's also ways to add filters on here to put something else. Like let's say you want to add in category for sport games or golf games, bowling games, you know, or vertical or horizontal games. That'll be with the add filter. I'm going to show you how to do that now, actually. So basically, when we select our games, the edit is through the space bar. So let me pick, I don't know, Golden Tee 98, you know, which is the golf game. You hit the space bar, it'll bring up the edit game here. Here you could change like the name of the game, the year, manufacturer, you know. And then I put on here under category, I categorize this one as golf, you know. You could do number of players, rotation here, you know, if you want to put like vertical or horizontal, you could do that here. So, you know, there's a whole bunch of different categories here. And then also here, you could delete this game. Let's say you want to remove it completely from your list on here. Let's say you have Golden Tee already, cabinet, you don't want those, or you don't want the horizontal games, just the vertical. This is where you would remove the game completely from this list. All right. So I already did. I went through. I added in the categories like all the horseshoe games, all the bowling games, you know, all the golf games, the dart, you know, games. And basically you would hit the tab, go back to the displays right here. And on the bottom where your favorites are, we'll go back there. We're going to add a filter. If you want to add another category here, this is how you would do it. Add filter, and you would name it. Let's say I want to add golf, right? Golf games. That's what would show up on there. So whatever you want to name it. Let's say you want to also remove or edit that favorites. If you want to call it the 12-in-1 or something else, or, you know, John's top list, top 10, top 25. You put that there, and then you gotta change the ruling. This is what it's gonna categorize it, basically. Use the filter. So under target here, for this particular one, we want to get all the golf games. So we're going to select where we put in the category. Have that. And then under comparison, we're going to say contains. So it's got to contain this for it to be included in this list. And then filter, we're going to put golf. Okay, so basically under this category, it has to contain in the category the name golf to be on this list. Then we're going to hit back. Back. So as you see, we have the golf filter on here now. Back. And then back. And it's going to appear here. Now we have all. We have favorites. And we have golf. So I'm going to select the golf one now. If I scroll, it's only going to show all the golf games on here, nothing else. So that's how you change that. And you want to go back to all. There's all your games, you know. So that's basically it. That's how you would change that. Go back to favorites. If you don't want it, go to filter, delete this filter, and now it's gone. You know, so you can mess around with that. Like I said, right now I only have favorites and all on here. If you guys want to, you know, make your own category on there, your own filter, that's where you'll do that. And that's it. So that's how you change buttons. You want to add in additional functions, or you want to remove any functions on here. That's how you do that, and you're set to go. So let me show you what's on the build here. Like you'll select the game, you know, by scrolling. I don't know. Let's see something that's fun. Quantum. I like Quantum. Alright, so once again, this A button, you could change that if you want something else. You could make all the buttons, select it. That will select the game, and then you'll be on the screen. The other change here, this will stay on here. It's not going to remove until we have player 1 button as the continue. So the only button, I could press any other button here, and we'll do nothing. You know, it took a while for me to configure this, but I finally got it to work here for that to happen. So this will, this is the only one that will continue. And then on the bottom here, both player 1 and 2, if you press them together, that will return the menu. Like I said, I wanted to make this as stock looking as possible on here, and we're getting so close to that on here. So, so I'll hit player 1. And basically, it will load up the game. You know, it will get us into Quantum. Now, what I didn't do, I configured all the games as far as buttons goes on here to set that up. Your coins, your start, and all that, everything will function. I didn't calibrate like the sensitivity of the trackball. Some games you will need to change that. I don't know if we're gonna need to change the encoder wheel to a 20 or 18. I think right now it's on a 24 pin encoder. Hopefully this could be configured with just the inside the menus on here. I haven't messed around with that. Like I said, if you're going to be playing these games and you change the settings and you got it right to that feels right on here, let me know in the comments below there. And like I said, I can make the adjustments. When I update this image, I'll include that build on there so we have somewhat of a default, because some of these games will need changes. Some of them work right out of the box, no problem, you know, where maybe some slight adjustments here and there, but some games, especially like the sport games, I see that, you know, you play like the golf game, you'll barely hit the ball on there, so it's got to be definitely configured. And the way you do that, you press the tab button, you know, will bring you the menus here. If in case, let's say your buttons are not working for some reason, this is where you would change the buttons on here, okay? You know, your coin, your start. Quantum doesn't have any, it only uses the trackball function, so you're not going to have any other buttons. But if you did, this is where you would change that. And then the switches on here, you know. I got it set on free play, but if you wanted to change that, or let's say you're using like a coin door or something, that's where you would switch that. But it's the analog controls. This is where you would mess around with. If anybody's got any time that wants to, you know, I'm not asking to do like every game, but maybe the games that you're playing or you want to play, if you find the right settings here, this is where you would change that. You know, basically, you know, your Y and X speed on here, you know, and the percentage of the sensitivity. Those, you know, would have to be tweaked around here and there if, let's say, the mouse is not going to the speed, or it's going too fast or too slow. So if anybody, like I said, anybody got time to make those configurations on here, just either take a snapshot of what you have on here or write down, you know, and then post it in the comment section. You know, once you make the changes there, click here, calibrate joysticks, and then you go back out of the game, you know. Back out, once again, it's the 2 buttons, and I'll bring you up. So that's it. Any questions or comments, like I said, leave it in the description part. I'm gonna start working on the asteroids. I'm excited about this one. This one's gonna be great because we're gonna have. There's so much spinner games. I haven't like realized how much, but it's like almost double the amount of the trackball games as far as spinner games. Plus, we could do button games on here because there's so many buttons here. So where we could even do, let's say, like Galaga, have the left and right, and then the fire. Or Space Invaders as a button control as opposed to a joystick control. And then, you know, we'll obviously have like the Asteroids, Asteroid Deluxe here, the only button games, and the spinner. So there's going to be a whole bunch of games on this one. And then once that's done, like I said, the 12-in-1. Now, if you don't have the 12-in-1, or let's say you already have these 2 machines or the Centipede, I would still recommend getting the 12-in-1 and getting another GRS Trackball and interface board. Because what's going to be great on the 12-in-1, now that's probably going to be the best build right now. This one is so far, but once we do that 12-in-1, the reason being why I'm going to like that one, like I said, it's going to have both the trackball and the spinner. So it's going to be combining these 2 machines. You know, I thought when I did the Donkey Kong or the Space Invaders that was one of the best, because we took the Galaga machine, we took the Space Invaders, the Pac-Man, and Donkey Kong, and we threw all that into one machine. But what the 12-in-1 is going to feature when that's done, it's going to have all the Centipede games, you know. It's going to have all the Asteroids, the Asteroid Deluxe cabinet, the 12-in-1, you know, games on there. Plus, like I said, I'm going to get the Galaga Galaxian on there, the Space Invaders set on there with the buttons, plus other button games like Phoenix, you know, that we don't have on the other builds. Plus this whole bunch of spinner games, a whole bunch of additional trackball games on there. So it's gonna be a great build on there. Like I said, it's gonna have the same type of interface. Let me know what you guys think about the new interface on here. I like it. Like I said, I like the simple. I'm not all about like the video snaps and all that. I like, you know, more of the basic simple look, and I think this will brings on here. But yeah, any questions you guys may have, post it in the comments section, and I'm gonna get working on this one here, the asteroids. And then still in the background, I know I still got the final fight. That's coming. But let me do these 2 machines. Like I said, what takes a lot of time in these is the images. You know, like the loading images, because I got to do this for every game. You know, I got to set that, create the image. So that does take some time, especially the more games it is, the longer. So that's what took a lot of time in doing. But you know, we'll get this. Give me some time. You know, hopefully by later on, end of the week, I'll have the asteroids ready for you guys. All right, signing out, fellas.